Good morning, everybody. I'm Tony Cho at the Future of Cities Climate Innovation Hub, here with a dear friend, colleague of mine, Claudia Duran, Managing Director of Endeavor Miami and North America. And we are here coming together for a special occasion. Endeavor Miami has just relocated their offices here to Little Haiti at the Climate Innovation Hub after probably, a decade of conversations and collaborations and just a lot of admiration for Claudia and what she does and the amount that she's holding as an entrepreneur and as an executive, helping other entrepreneurs. And the topic of our conversation today is regenerative entrepreneurship in the age of burnout. And today is a very special day because today is the 17th, and I'm not going to get too woo on you, but there's a lot of astrological things happening today. Year of the Fire Horse. We also have, the new moon.
Confirmation.
We have the new moon, and we have a solar eclipse. So just a few things happening in the cosmos. And I received my advanced copy of the book that I've been working on for 4 years called Generation Regeneration, Co-Designing the Future of Cities Through Regenerative Placemaking. Claudia and Endeavor Miami are in this book because we've had so many beautiful experiences together, which we'll talk about during our conversation. So thank you for being here, Claudia. It's really an honor and a pleasure to be in your company and to have you now in our ecosystem, physically, not just digitally, and every once in a while. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, Tony, for having me and for the invitation to co-create with you this new chapter of Endeavor Miami. And we're really excited to be in this space. And we've been talking about it for several years. So finally we manifested it. And I'm just really looking forward to co-creating with you and building great things for founders, especially around the topic of regenerative entrepreneurship and helping founders avoid getting to the point of burnout. And so we're going to talk a little bit more about that.
So let's dive right in. So you deal with founders and entrepreneurs all the time. And I think your benchmark is companies that have $10 million in revenue or above. And so you're dealing with people who are not just startups, but people who actually have an enterprise or have businesses. And what are some of the common themes that you're seeing among these founders? Where are they falling short? Where are they deficient? Where are they having issues mostly as you kind of support them in all aspects, except in the spiritual development side, which sometimes being a therapist and a coach, I would imagine is part of your role, but not part of the scope of your job. But I'm sure that plays a role because it's a lot to take on and the responsibility to hold of running a company, and probably having a family at the same time and all of those things. So what are some of the key themes that you see in the entrepreneurs that you work with?
Yeah. So Endeavor supports high impact entrepreneurs, specifically companies that are in high growth. So they can be, at 5 million this year and then go to 10 million in a year. So doubling revenues. And we want to capture them early so that we can support them in that journey. And Endeavor Miami has been working over 13 years now. And across this time, we've seen how founders are just hustling, working so hard that they rarely give time to themselves to regenerate and ground and recharge because there's so much pressure, right, on their shoulders to scale their company successfully. And the pressure comes from different ways. Their own pressure to succeed, and what does success look like? For each founder, it's different. And then once you have investors, then the pressure of returning that investment to the investors, right? And so you have the pressure of the board, the team that looks up to you, and that you have to make those strategic and hard decisions all the time. And so having all that weight on the shoulders, I've seen, it just causes a lot of mental instability, stress, cortisol through the roof. And lately, everybody's on a plane, so traveling back and forth, making sure that they're making the right decisions. And so a combination of things, it's really causing a lot of that burnout that we so much talk about. We talk about, but it's not discussed among the entrepreneurial community as much as I would like it to be discussed, because it's still not perceived well to be honest and vulnerable about burnout and being stressed Why not? Because you can't have your investors know that you're about to burn out, right? That's not a good signal. And so a lot of these entrepreneurs keep it to themselves. And then what happens is when they hit burnout, then that's a big issue because they can't show up to their teams or to execute with the right mindset. There's so much we can talk about the physical aspect of what happens when you burn out. But what I'm trying to do is have this conversation more openly with founders, even if it's within the contained community in a trusted circle, they can open up authentically to share about what is causing that stress and that pressure on their shoulders. And remember, most of founders are building the company, they have families, right? And the time that they want to dedicate to their kids. So managing that, and on top of them showing up for themselves, they're having a lot of issues in just balancing all of that.
Balance seems to be a key theme among the entrepreneurs that you deal with. I mean, myself, I deal with it as an entrepreneur running multiple companies, and I often find myself falling back into patterns. And I think, growing up and in the world of business and entrepreneurship, it's about, you're taught to multitask and be busy and to be consumed by a lot of things. And if you're too busy to meet with people, well, then you're inaccessible and you're successful. And I think those paradigms are now being blown up because I don't believe in multitasking. Personally, I can't do multiple things at the same time well. Some people maybe can do it better than me, but I think all the science and data is showing that focus is really important, and especially in the age of ADD and information that's coming at you from all angles, from gazillion different apps and a gazillion different people. And so I think, this concept of, busy for the sake of being busy is being debunked now. And I think we want quality over quantity from a relationship standpoint, from a time management standpoint. And so, I think that is, those are old paradigms that we're taught in business that I think are changing because it's more important how you feel than what you're actually, how busy you are. And I think busy doesn't mean productive.
Correct.
Busy just means busy. And
Yes.
productive can mean multiple levels. If you're not fulfilled, in your personal life, in your physical life, in your family life, how can you be fulfilled in your business life? There's an imbalance. And I think that just compounds the pressure. And so I love the work that you're doing with folks and, helping them to be more vulnerable and also express what they need, because most people are too embarrassed or too concerned about what their investors are going to say or what the public is going to say to feel open about being vulnerable and sharing, that I need support here and this. And it's not always in the business side. They might actually have the business side down, but it's in the personal side or it's in the physical side, or not being able to sleep or not being able to focus because, you start from the first thing in the morning with opening up your phone with 1,000 messages without really grounding yourself and really being focused and nourishing yourself, whether it's working out or being in nature or, physically embodying a practice, which I think it can be anything, whether it's breath work, meditation, the gym, biking. There's a gazillion different things that you can do to get out of your head and into your body. And I think that's what entrepreneurs are. They're 99% head, and then the body is forgotten as just like an appendage that, is carrying around your head, and it's like,
That's correct.
and it's like, so I think that's really important. And so how much of the outside of the business coaching and support do you guys get involved in?
And I love what you said about vulnerability and asking for help. That's exactly what I tell entrepreneurs all the time. Like, you're part of a network like Endeavor because we're here to show up for you and support you in any way that we can to help, solve any challenges or what keeps you up at night, etc. But it's also being vulnerable to ask for help and not being embarrassed about it or ashamed, because no one has it down to the T. Like, you don't have all the answers in front of you of how to scale your company. You're all the time making decisions in a fast-paced environment. And also there's challenges that sometimes rise out of the blue and you have to know how to tackle them. So having a network that can add value, and we're connectors at the end of the day. We connect the entrepreneur to people and resources that can help them solve those challenges, right? So there's always someone around the world that has been in their shoes before. So why reinvent the wheel and why go through that stressful process if you can hear from someone who already went through it and save you time and money? So I hear from founders, oh, I wish I would had connected with Endeavor earlier or have met this incredible founder earlier. It would have saved me years of work, right? And we spoke recently with a founder that told us that thanks to Endeavor and the support that we've given them, they saved years of bad decisions and they became profitable. And now it's a woman, the CEO, which her co-founder is her husband, but they say, we have a better way of tackling the challenges together because we now know, strategically we had to pivot and make these quick decisions, and now they feel like they have time for their family. They just had a baby. So it's all this, being open to asking for help. For me, it shows strength more than weakness. And that's a confusion in a lot of founders' mentality is, if I ask for help, it's a signal of weakness, and it's not. So I constantly invite, founders to be open. And if you don't feel comfortable, sharing with a stranger, make sure you're in a part of a network or community of trust. And we curate those connections. We make sure whoever's at the table is able to add value to the conversation, right? There's some common thread. So that curation of who's sitting at the table is very important also.
In the age of AI, where there is actually a lot of solutions that can solve a lot of problems for you and take you away from screen time, where things can be automated, and there's this super intelligence that's very powerful and revolutionary transformation that has both positive and negative impacts. But from the sense of gaining back time, this is an opportunity where humans are going to allow machines and artificial intelligence, to do things that we don't necessarily need to do anymore. So I think that is a positive evolution that can create more space. Because I think at the end of the day, we're given a finite amount of life, in this world. And, I just went through, a big loss, with my wife passing 8 months ago. And what it taught me really is how to live your life to the fullest. I mean, that's the lesson of dying, I think, is really coming back to the importance. And I think entrepreneurs, specifically business owners, get wrapped up in the details and all of the things that need to get done in a day or a week or a year or whatever to get to the goal. And I think it's important for entrepreneurs to align their business mission with their life mission, because, a year can pass, 5 years, 10 years can pass. You don't want to look back and say, I wish I would have.
Correct.
And I think that's where the vulnerability comes in having someone like you and an organization like Endeavor that gives them, you're the connector, right? You're creating a forum that's a safe space that people can ask for help. And it's not just for business help, financial help, fundraising. It's also help with, who's a good coach that can help me with nutrition, for example, or who's a lot of people because you're also in the Miami community as I am. I would like a, meditation coach or a breathwork coach, or, I want to join this community. And I think, your resources, my resources, with what we've cultivated communities of entrepreneurs and innovators and creators. Miami is a really amazing place for that now. There's people coming from all over the world, not just the ultra wealthy, but there are people that are the artists, the creators, the innovators, the small businesses. Miami, I think, has the largest per capita number of independent small businesses in the country, like the number of LLCs where people are sole proprietors or independent contractors. Apart from the companies that you're dealing with, which have 10 million in revenue and above, there's also a lot of small mom and pop entrepreneurs. So it is an entrepreneurial place. And so a lot of the challenges that, entrepreneurs and startup founders and founders that are at that level are experiencing is they think that they're alone, but really the whole city is going through a lot of the similar challenges. And it's our job to work together to connect the dots, because a lot of people are experiencing the same problems. And so this is universal. I think 40% of the world's population reports disconnection and loneliness, one of the highest, per capita loneliness statistic that we've seen in a very long time. and yet we're so hyper connected. We can get everything, but it's about, these places that people can come and connect where they feel safe. And so I think the hub is a unique, place, because it's really like really a second place, which is you have your home as your first place, you have your workplace as your second place, but the third place used to be your church or your synagogue, which some people go to, but a lot of people are not going to church anymore. Mm-hmm. And so what is that third place where people feel safe? It's a community hub, and people can come together. And I think that's what, the future of Cities Climate Innovation Hub, it's a second and a third place. People can't stay here. It's not their first place. It's not their home. We don't have residences here yet. But the idea when you build a community is that you have all those places, within walking distance, within 15 minutes, 5-minute cities, so that you can also have these connections. And I think that's what I love having you guys now at the hub, is there's this synergy that's created, this electricity between like-minded people who can support each other with networks, with advice, with great, suggestions for books and, AI tips and just all the things. And that it's that synergy that creates the ecosystem exponential effect. So I really appreciate, your approach to that with these entrepreneurs. And I'd love to understand a little bit more about the events that you do to bring people together and what your vision is now being at the hub. Like, how do you see that evolving from what you've done before? Because you guys were also at the lab for a period of time, right? Or you collaborated with the lab?
We collaborated when we started.
You guys were at, where was the previous place that you guys were at? The other co-working space?
No, we've had, we collaborated with the lab earlier when we started Endeavor in Miami, but then we've had our own office for a while. So this is the time we moved to a co-working space in order to collaborate and create more community. And why we chose this place is, as you said, the hub will start having different activities around well-being, connecting founders to maybe events that are more intentional, to showcase different tools that they can incorporate into their lives. So co-creating hopefully on a half-day wellness, day here at the hub for founders to come and get some information and also experiment a little bit with what you and I have been experimenting for several years personally on our own journeys, right? And that's why I'm bringing and incorporating into Endeavor, because I've seen a transformation on myself. And because I've had that experience, I know it works. And I've also spoken with you about your own experience. So why not bring it to and offer it to the founders? And I feel the loneliness epidemic that we're all living right now, it is real. And the founder journey is very lonely, right? Because again, of what I said earlier, the pressure that they have from everyone to succeed. And sometimes the pressure is so much that they even stop enjoying building their company, right? Because they initially started with this vision and this energy, and I want to solve this problem, but then it became such a stressful journey, then they feel like, I don't know if I can do this anymore. And in the journey, they got so diluted that they're doing it for very little equity. And so that's where it's so important to be part of a network, but not just any network, a community of peers. That's what we talk a lot about Endeavor. You are part of a community of peers where you can share similar experiences and learn from each other. So we're very intentional on who we bring into the network. And it's not only about the $10 million companies and above. We do support earlier stage companies in their process. Hopefully they become Endeavor entrepreneurs at some point and are part of our global portfolio. But Endeavor has become this platform of paying it forward. So we want founders to share their experiences, to pay forward by becoming mentors of the next generation of founders that are starting. Because we all know that more than 90% of startups, unfortunately fail. But they fail because they don't have the right tools, the right information. And so our job is to connect them to the right tools to take care of themselves as human beings and their minds and achieve balance, but also with other peers and founders that have scaled companies successfully so that they can share their knowledge. So we are connectors. And at the end of the day, founders have access to, so much information. And in this era of AI, I agree with you, productivity can go much higher if you incorporate all these tools so that you free some time. And I was just recently with an entrepreneur that told me, my company was about to go bankrupt. I had a very difficult year with depression, very, very hard. My co-founder left the company, but I was able to incorporate AI to the business. I pivoted, and then I hired the best talent. And that formula made him, scale the business. And now he has much more time. He's like, I have time to take care of myself, my family, and I'm able to manage my life much more efficiently. So I said, he is the guy who at some point we maybe can invite him, because he says being busy, I no longer have that in my language. I don't say I can't because I'm busy, because he knows how important it is for him to have time for things that he loves. And so being busy does not equal being successful.
It's the opportunity now for everybody to know that people are building companies in days and weeks and months now with AI. And so you kind of have to throw out what you learned before. We have to unlearn all the things of just, micromanaging and oversight, and really get to innovation, because it's really it's a very exciting time. And to support entrepreneurs like that. And, talking about, earlier stage companies that you've supported, and you've had accelerators, and you've had other programs that you've worked on that are one-off. We did this event at Chosen, a retreat center called Venture into Nature, where we brought, women and other minority founders of climate tech companies to Chosen with investors and high net worth to spend a weekend in nature. That's what we call it, Venture into Nature. It was kind of a cool name. And we were able to raise the $25K, and pay for the event. And do an accelerator for these 10 companies. Correct. And some of these companies now have scaled and are, doing great. And it was a positive experience. And so I'm really excited for more of those immersions, because I think the in-person IRL nature-based stuff is important. And I think, doing our day treats here, Regenerative Entrepreneurship Day Treat, where people can learn about tools for regeneration so that they can self-regulate their nervous system, manage their time, get the help that they want, when it's not just business advice, but it's also personal advice or even spiritual advice on their own development and what they're doing. So I think that's going to be very exciting. And, I really want to see kind of how this unfolds. It's going to be really a great kind of coming together of our communities in our world. And I think, community really is medicine. We say at our retreat center, nature is medicine, food is medicine, and community is medicine. And it really is. If you have authentic community, you can overcome anything. You can raise a family. It's much easier. You have a lot more support. You have aunts and uncles, like more in the Latino tradition. Yeah. My wife was Colombian, so I'm very much used to that style, where you do have engagement with different generations and the support and the transfer of wisdom, which we've kind of in the Western worlds have gotten away from, and have become very isolationist and very individualistic. And I think that's what's contributed to loneliness too. So it's kind of a reframing. And your family doesn't need to be your birth family or even your adopted family. Your family can be the family that you choose, your chosen family, right? So I think that that's something that's really important. And you've really created a family of entrepreneurs, as we've created a family of regenerative placemakers, and people are really into this concept of regeneration. And regeneration is really about a rebirth. It's about a renewal, and it's about this energy of reciprocity, where what you give, you receive. So many people are giving, and they become burned out. My grandmother always used to say, and this is kind of like goes back to regeneration as well, as make sure that you're drinking while you're pouring. Making sure while you're giving, you're also re-nourishing yourself. Because if you're just giving, then you're going to become dry and brittle, and you'll break. You become depleted. So it's and what does that mean to give? I mean, what does that mean to receive? It means that when you wake up in the morning, that you're not just like being bombarded with things, and then your nervous system is overwhelmed by information, but you're taking time to go to the beach. You're taking time to look at the sunrise. You're taking time to breathe. You're taking time to have an amazing breakfast, if that's what you do, or to enjoy your coffee or your matcha, and you make time for yourself. That's what people don't realize, that is quality of life, is focusing on yourself, doing exercise. If you have a yoga practice or a meditation, it's like, what time is allocated for you? Because you're going to do the company, and you're going to do the family, and you're going to do the things that are going to come at you. But what are you doing for you? Correct.
I actually, being at Endeavor for almost 7 years, this organization, are my responsibilities to give and to help founders. And at some point I was giving because I love the job so much. It's actually, I'm very thankful that I'm able to support founders. By the way, my parents were both entrepreneurs, so it's in my DNA. But I was giving so much that I ended up burning out, not only once, twice. So I had to learn the hard way. And it is real. The mental fog, the not being able to process the information, rereading emails and not understanding what I was reading, then my energy level to the floor, not sleeping well. So waking up, even after sleeping 8 hours, but being not restful, was even tired. So I was like, what is happening with me? I cannot show up to entrepreneurs and help them if I'm not doing well myself. So I had to go down that rabbit hole and understand what was happening with my own journey. If I was gonna, talk about it, I had to actually change my lifestyle. So I did a radical change in the way that, the food that I eat. I sleep at least 8 hours. I have to get my 8 hours, and I sleep well now. And I track, everything that I do. I make sure I do exercise. But most importantly, what works for me, and for everybody's different, is grounding. So I'm the type of person who doesn't wear shoes when I get home. I love being on the grass, and I just stare into my garden and nature, and I replenish myself just connecting with nature. I love nature, and I think nature is the medicine for humanity. And I hope that we can do more things to bring nature to founders, because I feel that, it gives you so much. For me, it gives me so much love and so much, it's a container that I'm able to continue doing the work that I do because I am respectful towards it, and I also know what I'm putting inside my body. So it's not about, all the expensive supplements, the expensive creams, and doing cold plunges and all of that. It's about what works for you, understanding your body to the point that you know what you need. If you need to sleep, if you need to stop and pause, take a day off, just honoring yourself, but also making sure you're true to yourself and really making the time so that you can replenish and regenerate. Because if not, if you postpone, and it's in your mind that you have to do it, but you're postponing it, you're just, lying to yourself that you're really at your optimal level, because you're not. So it all has to do with living in the present moment. For me, it's the mind being present and making sure my body is in alignment with my mind and my soul. And at the end is a triangle: work, family, and myself. So I recalibrate when I need to. And it's not perfect. No one's perfect. So sometimes I feel like I'm off in one of the three, and I have to recalibrate. But I make the time for it.
Great advice. That's really important. And I think nature is medicine. And in whatever way, whether it's a park in a city, or we have Biscayne Bay here, we have the ocean, we have so much nature everywhere. We're very fortunate that we have access to a lot of nature. You have the Everglades right here, you have the Keys, you've got Chosin, you've got so many things all around you. I don't even think people realize that. So many people live in Miami, don't even go to the beach or really take advantage of this tropical paradise.
Because we're disconnected.
We're very disconnected, and we separate ourselves, and we concrete over things, and we and that creates more loneliness and more separation. Japan, we know that forest bathing is prescribed by doctors in Japan for people to spend time in nature to clear your mind and to refresh yourself and renew yourself. So that's something that I would encourage people to do. And like you said, grounding is in whatever form that is, meditating, breathing. For me, being in the sun is very important, like vitamin D and sunshine. Like that is something that really impacts me. And that's why living up north or going to school, I was depressed because I wasn't seeing the sun enough. So everybody has their own specific formula and alchemy for their own system to find regeneration. You've got to know what that is, but you've got to create the space for yourself to really discover that and explore. And that's why, even this year, I had it was a big moment of transformation for me this last year, a lot of changes and a lot of shedding. And, I used to play, piano, and I love music, and, the creative parts have not been part of sitting in a boardroom and sitting in interviews or creating content. All of that's great, but it's not developing, my soul, and music really feeds my soul. So now I'm learning how to DJ, I'm learning how to play the guitar, I'm really calling in music, and it's really something that's very beautiful. And I learned even my name means music in Japanese,
Oh my God.
which I didn't even know until Sensei Samurai came to Chosen and explained that
Love
to
it.
us. So it's like you don't even understand. You're not even listening to the signs. I'm 47 years old, and I didn't even know that about myself. So really getting to know yourself and know that human beings evolve over time.
100%.
What you liked last year or 5 years ago, or what resonates with you then, may not resonate now. And so you got to constantly be updating, your operating system, just like a software. You know what I mean? It's like, what resonates with me right now? What's alive for me? What's coming, into my sphere? And if you have so much noise around you and so much distraction, and you're just constantly in the matrix, how are you ever going to even know what you want? And that's the thing I think people forget how many people do you ask, what do you really want in life? And most people don't even know how to answer it.
Yeah.
So I think it starts with that question for an entrepreneur, because they're all talking about making money, success, commercializing a product. But really, why do you want, what's the why behind what you're doing? And I think that is the deep inquiry. And if the why is aligned with the what, then you have this resonance. And then if you're aligned with your purpose, I think all of those things kind of come together. So I think that those are some things that I think, food for thought for entrepreneurs. Miami is an exciting place. I've been in Miami for 23 years. I, grew up back and forth between Miami and Central Florida. And I've seen Miami grow from being on the cover of Time magazine as Paradise Lost with the Cocaine Cowboys in the 80s, and how dangerous it was here, to being Silicon Beach now with Zuckerberg and all these tech billionaires coming here, Jeff Bezos, and this being kind of a new playground, but also it has the potential to be a laboratory, right, for innovation, climate tech. We saw the Reef Line deployment early last year, and you're seeing innovative things starting to happen. Citadel coming to town. There's a lot of exciting things happening. There's a lot of challenges that are created with the amount of wealth that's coming in. Lack of affordability, lack of workforce housing, lack of opportunities for just the average person. So, there's a lot of shifts happening, not only in Miami and South Florida and all of Florida, but, you have this seismic shift happening with, the future of work and AI and all of this stuff. So how do you see Miami today, in terms of opportunity, in terms of community, in terms of what's happening here, and why is this place kind of like so exciting right now?
Yeah. So I've been in Miami for 10 years, and I feel like I've seen, like you, not as much, but the growth specifically from 2020 to now, the big migration to the city from Latin America and also from different cities, New York and San Francisco. I feel like Miami has so much to offer, is a diverse, wealth of everything. Specifically, it's a community from elsewhere. Founders from all over the world move here, right? So it's very unique and different than other cities in the world because of that diversity. And I feel that we have that uniqueness that is a superpower, because you're able to connect with founders and with people in general from different parts of the world here. And I'm seeing Miami as a gateway specifically for Latin America. So a big migration from Latin founders wanting to enter the US market through Miami. So it's becoming that hub, entry gateway to the US market. And we help them do that soft landing and think strategically how to enter the US market after they've scaled in Latin America. And we have founders that are just building in Latin America from Miami. So it's very interesting to see the reasons why founders move here. Lifestyle is a big one. Obviously, some of them, even for security reasons, they decide to move here and then, still operate their companies elsewhere. And then now with all the tech giants moving here, there's also an opportunity. I mean, it's positioning Miami as that go-to city to build. So more and more, we're going to see more talent migrating. And I think there's still things that have to be solved at the public, level, and corporate and private sector coming together to see how they can help the city be affordable, and how can talent actually land and because there's a big gap on sea levels, right? That a lot of our companies need to hire this talent, but they're not able to find them here, or they're not able to reallocate them here because there's challenges that I'm not going to go into right now, but we still have a lot to figure out. But it's exciting. There's so much growth happening for Miami.
The city's unrecognizable. I mean, I've been involved in the entire urban core of, from downtown, to Wynwood, to Little River, Little Haiti. The design district is unrecognizable in the last 10 years. I mean, there was no buildings in Wynwood 10 years ago. There was only warehouses with graffiti.
It was scary to go there.
It was dangerous in many places. And and so it's really interesting to see this transformation, and people don't realize that Miami has evolved so much, and it's always had something that it's had this edginess. It's been this cultural melting pot, this diaspora from the Caribbean, Latin America, Europe, and now what it has all this intellectual capital and financial capital from Wall Street, from New York, from San Francisco, mixing in the mix. And of course, it's always been a sexy place. It's just, people are beautiful. You don't have to, people are, in bikinis and bathing suits, and, and they work out and they look good, and people are healthy. And, during the pandemic, it was very open here, the policy, and there was no more per capita, casualties, fatalities than in other places. Because why? Sunshine and lack of restrictions and being happy,
and air,
fresh air, and beaches play a role in your overall well-being and your happiness.
Yes, I agree.
And I published a Substack like 2 weeks ago called The Architecture of Loneliness, and the Surgeon General issued a study that essentially, being lonely is like smoking 15 cigarettes a day.
Wow.
So it's like Miami has the opportunity to really bring people together year round. The weather's amazing. You have the diversity of cultures, people speaking not only Spanish, but many different languages everywhere you go. And I think that that's a huge strength.
Yes.
Some people might, have concerns about hiring here. Do people speak, have a good command of the language? But, we hire all over the world. We're fairly decentralized and in many countries, but being in Miami is just a great place. Everybody wants to meet here. Everybody wants to come here. The weather's incredible. And now there's a lot of innovators here that are, running the biggest companies in the world. And hopefully they will bring their intellectual capital, financial capital to do really great things, because Miami has challenges with affordable housing, with sea level rise, with climate events, and with education. Public education is not the best here. So there's a lot of things that hopefully together, the public sector, the private sector, and all these new people can help solve. But I'm really excited for the work that you're doing, the work that we're doing, the work that we're going to do together, our workshops, our regenerative entrepreneurship workshops, another retreats at Chosen. So I think there's a lot more to come. And before we wrap up, I would like to kind of summarize, what are three pieces of advice that you would offer, just to summarize our conversation, to entrepreneurs experiencing exhaustion, burnout, disconnection? What would you, Claudia, recommend that they do? Or what are three things that can help them improve their state so that they can, be better for themselves, for their families, and for the community?
I would say the first one is to be true to themselves and speak up and ask for help if they're feeling that they're almost burning out or in the middle of a burnout, and not be embarrassed or feel bad about it, because this is very common, although most of them feel it's not, and it's just happening to them. The more we share it, the more I think we can have a positive impact in more founders and people's lives by just connecting them to the right peers and people that have gone through it. So it's a support network, it's a support community, and that is where our role comes in, to build safe spaces for founders to be able to speak up and not feel bad about it in a safe space. And then the other thing is, know that there's so many people willing to help, ready to just, give you a hand and share their tools. There's so many incredible, so much talent in Miami around breath work. There's the summit happening soon around wellness. There's, you name it, there is all of that in Miami. So there's places you can go breathe. There is sound healing. And hopefully we can bring some of these tools to experiment, right? Because some will not resonate with you, but at least you can try them and then see what works. But the most important is Miami is surrounded by nature. So just go out and ground yourself either at a park or the ocean. We drive and we disconnect from nature. We don't see it, but it's all around Miami. There's so many trees and beautiful green spaces, in Coral Gables, here in El Portal, close to the future of cities. Anyways, it's just take some time to just disconnect and reboot your operating system, because we do have software and hardware. Our bodies need to regenerate, but our minds also need to regenerate. And making space to declutter from programs that don't serve any purpose anymore, from past, or focusing, that's another thing, founders focusing a lot in the future and forgetting about the present moment. So the third advice is try to be in the present. There's so much happening, but it can be very distracting. Focus on what you love and what makes you feel joy, because that's gonna immediately help your body and your mind be more in balance, right? And life is short, and we're here to have this incredible experience called life. And it's about enjoying the journey and not missing out on the journey, because we're so busy just building things and sometimes being miserable, right? So what's the point? So I invite everyone to think, why are we here? What do we need to do to really find joy in our lives? And I think Miami, with all the talent that has arrived, there's an opportunity to pay it forward and everybody put a little bit into the city so that we can all benefit from it. We don't want just people taking from the city, because there's a lot of takers. We want people who give back and that are willing to participate in building this incredible city together. So I do think it's a responsibility of all of us to create this community, amazing community, and not continue just building and destroy it, because we've seen that in other cities that just scale so fast, and then we lose a lot of the amazing magic that the city has and the nature that has given us so much. So we have to protect the city.
Words of wisdom from the guru of entrepreneurship. You heard it directly from Claudia. So to recap some of those pieces of advice: ask for help.
Yes.
Spend time in nature. Be present, right? And focus on yourself. What's your joy? Those are 4 pieces of advice from a very, very wise woman. And from here at the Future of Cities Climate Innovation Hub on regenerative entrepreneurship, how we can avoid burnout, and really finding those communities where you can feel safe and express yourself, because you are not alone.
You're
That
not
is
alone.
for sure. Nobody is alone.
No.
There's 8 billion of us going through the same human experience and in different perspectives with different cultures, but many of us feel the same emotions. And there's resources out there, and I'm really excited for this partnership and this resource. So follow Endeavor Miami on what they're doing, support them. If you're an entrepreneur, get in touch with them. If you want support, attend some of our events that we're going to be doing together. And follow us. Pre-order my book on my website, tony-cho.com/book. We're going to be doing an amazing summit in July on regeneration, where there'll be a module on regenerative entrepreneurship. So.
And we also have a summit April 22nd. It's going to be in Miami Beach, also for founders. So if you're an entrepreneur, please come to our Endeavor Miami Summit. It's going to be on our website. You can buy a ticket.
All right. Regenerate. Thank you.